Hey, this is Jose Galison on No Way Jose. This episode you'll see on the Liberty Movement YouTube channel as well, and my YouTube channel that I just started up as too. Today I have from my guest, Mr. Peter R. Quinones. It's really great to have you on. It's not to be weird or anything, but it's kind of you're one of those people that it really influenced my thinking a lot. So you've been a catalyst for like what's got me deeper into reading and kind of changed my thinking in a lot of ways. You and Dave Smith and some other people are kind of been some big influential people in my thinking. So it's kind of great to have you here. And yeah, even when I disagree with you, it is like I like the way you think.
Nice to hear. Thank you.
So I had Pete on today because I wanted to talk about The Mandalorian. I've been following his Substack, and he's been digging it. And he's actually what dragged me back into it, because the first half of season one, I was just kind of like, it was cool. I liked it, but like I'm not one who watches a lot of TV. I watch like one show at a time. So it's got to be something really valuable. And then, yeah, Pete kind of dragged me back in with the Substack, and I'm glad I did. It's been a great ride. So yeah, definitely suggest getting on that Substack. So with that, I think we probably ought to breeze into season one. We're just going to do a quick summary of it. And so what were your thoughts on season one, Pete?
I thought it was just, one of those perfect build-ups where, just like a getting to know you kind of thing, where you get to know the characters and you start getting an idea. It's really more about him, about Din, the Mandalorian, and getting to know where he came from, what Mandalorians are all about, and less about Baby Yoda. And we don't really get to know anything about him until about halfway through season two. But season one was just, to me, like just a really good build to figure out where they were going to go in the future. It definitely seemed to me like from season one that they had multiple seasons planned ahead of time, that they were going to do. It's like, hey, we're going to do a lot with this, and it seems like that's what they're going to do. And as you'll see, there's already, I'm sure we'll talk about the fact that there's already going to be an offshoot of this that you saw in the hidden scene, or the after credit scene in the season finale of season two. So
yeah, I feel like it's gonna be really hard during this to just not nerd out and just jump right to the end, because I feel like what me and you really both want to talk about is that finale. But I'll try to keep it in my pants and hold it back.
Sure.
Because I definitely have a lot of words to say about that, and I'm sure you do as well. But yeah, I definitely like season one. It was definitely like a very intro. It kind of surprised me with season two that they started kind of focus more on the relationship between Baby Yoda and Mando. I guess I kind of did it, but it felt more. I don't know. I guess season one is just more like about the characters and introducing new characters. There at the end, I guess you got that vibe a little bit, but it was very Mando centric. I almost thought that they might actually ditch him after like a season or two, and maybe they do. We'll get into that later, but it doesn't seem that way. But yeah, it was kind of slow build, like you said, so that's kind of why I ditched it halfway through. And it's not that it was necessarily bad; it's just that it was a slow build, and I'm a very busy man. So yeah, and like I said earlier, I only do like usually like one show at a time. So it's got to be good stuff. But yeah, definitely was worth holding on to. So yeah,
I'm glad season two. I'm glad season two's over, because the new season of The Expanse just dropped. So I have to binge watch that. So
yeah, I've heard good things about that. I've always wanted to get into that, but like I said, I don't watch a lot of TV at all. I'm so busy. I have like multiple businesses and stuff. So with that, let's get into season two. What we really want to talk about. Let's talk about the first episode of season two. The Marshal. That's the one with the crate dragon, just to jog everyone's memory. So you have any thoughts on that?
Well, it was great to have a cameo from Timothy Oliphant, who Justified, and so many great roles. And I'm pretty sure that everyone recognized the armor he was wearing when he appeared, when you first see him in the bar. It was like, okay, wait a minute, and then you're automatically going, how did he get out of there? Wait a minute, what did he spit out the armor? What the hell happened here? How did this happen? And then a really good amount of action in that one, especially when they're killing that, what the hell was that thing called?
Crate Dragon, which that's
Yeah, the
actually a
Great
big
Dragon.
piece of lore for Star Wars nerds. Yeah.
So you kill that, and I mean the battle to get that, and then at the very ending, they do basically like a walk off with you see they don't tell you who it is, but I mean I knew exactly who it was right at the ending who's walking off the camera, and I'm like, oh, okay, here we go.
I thought that's all we were gonna get. Like this show just doesn't cease to astound, and I was actually surprised about that when that came. I was like, "Whoa!" But
Yeah,
yeah, no.
but
Oh, sorry.
well,
Go ahead.
it's fun. Well, we'll get to that. Remind me to tell you the actor who's playing the person we're talking about, what he's played in the past. I don't know if you know it.
Oh, I don't know much about his
Oh, okay.
film history or anything.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
I-
it's in the Star Wars universe.
oh, you talking about how he's the clone or whatever? Was the clones or was he somebody else?
Oh, he was somebody else.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I didn't catch that. Maybe I did. It's not jogging my memory right now. Yeah, apparently, I found out today, actually, apparently even Timothy Oliphant's character, I guess, was actually another character from deep, like, Star Wars lore, which apparently, like, it's like one thing I've really loved about the show is they have not held back on fan service at all. And, like, but not in a shitty way. Like, they did it in a good way. And because, like, there's so many little touches that they don't even make a thing of, but later you're like, yeah, that was in, this Legends comic book and blah, blah, blah. You're like, what? No way. Like, even apparently Timothy Oliphant's character was, which that really surprised me that they did that deep of a cut. Like, I'm not a huge Star Wars nerd, but even for me, there was a lot of stuff I'm like, really? That's really niche. They're really bringing that in. So yeah,
Oh, there's something real deep in the season finale I'll talk about. I mean, a deep, I mean, outside of the universe kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
That becomes part of the universe now that this character actually said it. So,
I mean, maybe I'll know what you're talking about later, but because there's so many things in this show. There's so many different rabbit trails you can go on with the lore that they've introduced in here or touched on from past things. Yeah, it was also really awesome seeing a crate dragon. For those who are Star Wars nerds, like I said, I'm a moderate Star Wars nerd. It is like a thing in a lot of the video games and stuff, the crate dragons, and to see one on film and done well. Like this was the one episode that I was like, holy shit, they're really pushing out the money. They're not like because you kind of expect like a TV show type budget, like I don't know what their budget was, but it definitely looked film quality.
It's Disney,
Yeah.
they have money.
I know, but you're still like, it's like, it's a TV show. They're not going to go that all out. And you're like, then you see this giant crate dragon, you're like, they're going all out.
I mean,
so
when you think, I would really like to have a beat on a number that of the people that actually subscribe to Disney Plus just to watch this. Because I don't subscribe to Disney Plus, but I still watch it. But it'd be interesting to find out how many actually do.
yeah, I mean, that's the only thing I think I watch on Disney Plus. So, and I'm sure that's the case for a lot of people. I mean, I'm big. You can see behind me, I'm a big comic book nerd. So like, I kind of like, but even though I don't go back and watch that content that much. So, I mean, I might occasionally partake, but for the most part, it's just Mandalorian. Yeah, let's move to the next episode. This is the Frog Lady episode that most people would think of, where he escorts the Frog Lady. This was just kind of, for me, it was just kind of a fun episode. There wasn't anything too deep to it. I mean, I don't know if you have any thoughts on it that you want to add to.
It's the lowest ranked episode on IMDb of the season. People seem to hate it the most out of all the episodes. I mean, obviously the highlight is when he starts when Grogu starts eating the eggs. It was just, I thought that was the best thing ever. And then like the next day, someone had memed it. He was just holding and someone had put on there, fuck them eggs.
Yeah, she was hilarious. It was pretty fucked up. Even from the get, I was like, that's pretty fucked up, but hilarious.
And and also you had I guess the one other thing from that episode is the X-Wing fighter, I guess they're the Rangers of the New Republic. Are they calling it the New Republic? What are they calling it?
I think so. I know
Yeah,
they're actually making a show called Rangers of the New Republic. So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
that sounds like that's kind of like the new thing. And I know it's like Kara later joined, or actually, I think the end of last season she joined up or something like that with
yeah,
them.
yeah.
So
So
yeah,
yes, so yeah, that was a good introduction to see an X-wing and to see some Rangers, and it just sets things up.
yeah, I do think it was a cool callback too because they kind of like pointed out how they kind of hooked him up because he didn't or he tried not to murder the one guy earlier. So
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know why. I was like reading Sterner when that came out, and so I kind of was like in my head, I was like, oh, so that's kind of like that whole, I guess, kind of also a little bit Ayn Randian, where it's like that, like, even though you're doing good things doesn't necessarily mean it's it's you can be doing it for yourself, and essentially because it's like it worked out for him in the end, kind of deal. I'm kind of stumbling over words, but you know what I'm getting at.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I thought it was a fun episode. It wasn't like the greatest. It was kind of just like it was kind of cool because it reminded me of like old school like horror films, and that's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
I think what they're going for. But it was just a fun episode. I mean, maybe it was the lowest ranked, but I mean, out of this season, that's still a compliment.
Yeah, yeah. Sure.
Yeah. All right, next episode. This is where they run into the other Mandalorians, or what I guess he later
Yeah.
disputes whether they are or not. So, you got anything to say that?
Is the one where they make him go on the mission with them. Yeah, that was a lot of action in it. It was also a short episode. I think that episode was only 35 minutes. And yeah, that was, I mean, another setup episode to set up what would come in eventually in the season finale. It almost seems like every episode up to a certain after the second one was just setting up the season finale. So it's like, okay, so this is what we're going to see. This is what we're going to see. But I mean, that was a good episode too. The thing that I like that they hinted at in that episode was by him not taking his helmet off, he was like a part of like a very strict sect of Mandalorians, and it almost made him sound like Wahhabist or something like that. Like they were like they're like, yeah, just take your helmet off, just like it's like take your mask off, stop it. Just so but yeah, I mean it was just that was a good setup because that Bo-Katan was going to come back, that eventually she was going to have to come back. So yeah.
I did kind of like, I feel like they were subtly kind of like introducing story beats with that. And I think that kind of like, I feel like it's dual natured, comes in later. I'll probably going to do that more later, but I did like how they did that subtle drop. It doesn't seem to mean much, but I feel like later it kind of makes it more impactful because it does make it like a religious thing. And I feel like that kind of creates other metaphors for like what's going on there and how it's almost like he's a religious zealot. And I mean, I'll kind of get into it later because it kind of like if we go into like maybe the future, I kind of have an idea of like what that could build off of. And it also obviously makes some future scenes way more impactful when like what it means to him, that it's like that,
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, let me see. I almost forgot what the next episode is. Next episode, this is where he reunites with Kara, and this is the one. This is probably actually my least favorite one. The one where they go back to I forget what the one planet is, and they kind of, I don't know, they go to that one Empire type place, and I forget even what they were even doing in that episode. That was the one I liked the least. Is it ringing a bell for you?
Is that?
It was the most forgettable one for me.
I don't know which one that is.
Yeah, it's the next episode. He goes back to that planet with Carl Weathers and Cara Dune.
Oh yeah,
and it's kind of this weird. I don't remember what the point of that was. I mean, all it did was kind of show you more of what's going on with Grogu and stuff. Like, but aside from that, it was kind of like that was my least favorite episode. I mean, it was bad. It was fun. There just wasn't really anything important in that episode that I can recall. It was okay. Like, I don't really even have any thoughts on that one. That was almost like a filler. Was what it felt like. So, yeah. Next episode, the Jedi. Now that one was cool.
Yeah. That's the one everybody's losing their shit on. Yeah. But
I actually was like worried they would blew their wad too early with that. I was like, what? We still have like more episodes? Like, how are they going to top this? Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's I think if anybody remembers anything from that episode is you get to find out what Baby Yoda's real name is.
Mm-hmm.
and they also start hinting at his past. And I mean, what when she started mentioning his past, what came out? What was in your head about? She said something dark happened to him. Something, something bad happened to him. What do you think it was?
I mean, obviously, I mean, it took a while to dawn on me, but obviously they were talking about the slaughter of the Jedi Temple.
Yeah,
But,
the young one, the young,
yeah,
yeah, he was supposed to be part of that
yeah.
slaughter,
Which
and
spawned a lot of great memes.
yeah, I was gonna say he was supposed to be a part of that slaughter, and
Mhm.
somebody rescued him. And the question is who? And I have an idea, but I can't. I haven't watched the prequels recently, so I'm trying to remember where R2 was at the time. At that time, because when you consider the reaction in the season finale and everything, which we'll get to and everything, but yeah, I was trying to want. So yeah, that episode had a lot. I mean, it was just, I mean, the fighting, the it seemed like there were slaves in a city, and apparently there was a lot of backstory to you know t- to lore outside of the movies and the animated series and everything, which I've never watched. So
Mhm.
I'm learning this stuff and as it's going along.
Yeah, Ahsoka is like a huge fan favorite. Like I mean, I'm 29, so it's kind of my era when the Clone Wars was coming out. So I mean, that was in high school for me though, so I was like, partying up and having fun and stuff. So I wasn't really paying attention too much, but I kind of off and on pay attention to Clone Wars. So yeah, it was kind of cool to get that nod of Ahsoka there because you always kind of wondered what happened to her. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of cool stuff. Obviously it felt like a samurai movie. Like I like how they almost
Mhm.
like pick genres and they almost kind of go with them some of these episodes. And it was a samurai movie. That's what it was. One of those old school Japanese samurai flicks is what it was. Like that's all the vibes I got from that. And there's so many callbacks, and then you got the Beskar spear,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like I don't know, it's just so much cool stuff. And like yeah, with the setting up his past is like that opened up a whole box of like possibilities. Like yeah, and
Well, also the Beskar spear, is
mhm.
going to be very important coming up. So yeah, that was there was a lot there.
Yeah, I mean I probably could go on about it more because that is a really kick-ass episode. And yeah, I mean I actually have no idea. I mean I know the going theory is that R2D2 is the one who saved him, but it's like it could. I mean I could think of like so many different characters. Like it could go so many different ways. Like obviously everybody wants Mace Windu to come back in
Yeah,
one
yeah.
shape or form. Everybody thought
I
he
was
was going to
wondering
be the
if he was.
finale.
Yeah, I was wondering if. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, which I mean we'll get into that later. As everything in that season is a setup for the finale, everything in this episode is a setup for the finale.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to the next episode. This is the episode's the tragedy. This is where the tragedy occurs, where they go to the little Jedi magic place to summon other Jedi, which I don't really know the ins and outs of how that works. Sometimes you just gotta go with the woo woo and just go, yep, okay. And this is one of them. Don't overthink it. But yeah, they go to the one planet. And yeah, I'll let you go from there.
Yeah, this had some amazing action in it, and it was actually directed by Robert Rodriguez, and it makes a lot of sense. I didn't realize that until after I'm watching the credits roll, and then I'm like, oh, okay, with that huge stone taking people out, and just all the action, and of course we find out that for sure that Boba Fett is alive.
Yeah.
And that Fennec is alive. And I mean, she was such a minor character in the first season. When she appeared, I had to look her up
I
because I
still
didn't
don't even remember
remember.
where she came from.
Yeah, it was the episode where they were on Tatooine. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, so we get to see Boba, and Boba just wants his armor back. Yeah, and I love how Mando just keeps that religious fervor of you can't have it because you're not where are you from? Are you a Mandal? He's like, no, screw you, just give me my armor back. It was my dad's.
Yeah.
And I love the when Grogu's on the when he's connecting with the Force, and Mando keeps trying to get in there to grab him. He keeps getting like, yeah, I mean, got determination and everything, but it's like, you have to ask the question, why didn't he? When Boba, said put your when he put his rocket. When he put his pack down for Boba, it's like, why didn't you put it back up put it back on when the stormtroopers showed up? And that was a hell of a lot of stormtroopers. That was nuts, man. And
yeah, it was a great fight scene. Yeah.
But it was like, I mean, the ending of that was chills when Boba finally goes in and gets his armor and comes back, and he's got the knee rockets and everything. It was just, oh man, that was really cool.
Yeah, this is another one where I'm like, holy shit, they're doing it. Like Ahsoka was the first one. I was like, no way, they did it. And then Boba, I was like, what? Like, so then with the finale, not to get back into it, when that happens, you know what? I was like, no way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, it was almost like stages of disbelief with each subsequent person they brought in. Yeah, I mean, obviously the end sucks. They steal Grogu, and kind of you're like, oh shit, and obviously now at that point the next beat is we're gonna go save him. So that leads into the next episode where the deal is, this is they got to go find find out where Gideon's at, and so this is where they get Bill Burr's great one. This is honestly, like, I have a hard time choosing which is my favorite episode, this one or the finale. I probably would lean towards the finale, but this episode was great. I mean, there's so many, I don't know, just this was like Bill Burr's performance of a lifetime. It was phenomenal.
Pretty much better than anything he ever did in Breaking Bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this one was just insane. Just a basically breaking in. The premise of it is so simple. It's like, well, we got to break in and steal some information. And you've seen it in so many different movies and, so many different TV shows, but you knew something was going to go wrong. And then, the great part is they get there and it's like, okay, we're going to have to deal with the Empire. They don't realize that there's a civil war going on. They're attacking pirates. I mean, they were calling them pirates, but I took it more as like a civil war kind of thing. It's like, okay, you're on our planet, you're doing this. Okay, so screw you. You're the insurgents, and we're gonna do everything we can to fuck you up. So that whole scene where they're racing to the Empire headquarters so that they can get in there, and then when they finally get in there, even you knew that wasn't going to go well, and of course, Din has to take his helmet off, and they're walking around, and then but the best part is you get to find out that the Bill Burr character, I can't remember his name now. What the hell was it?
I don't either. Yeah.
But you get to find out that this guy who was doing hard time, and when you found him, he was a just a criminal. When he's introduced in season 1, you get to find out that he really does have a conscience, and it sounds like it had been wearing on him for a decade or two.
Yeah, it was a great episode. It was so on the nose. Like it was literally just telling the story of us over post 9/11 America, and essentially a veteran that did fucked up shit. And it was so on the nose. You literally could swap out everything. Even the pirates there are, it's kind of how there's no good guys in war. They're all shitty. And it's the same idea with the pirates. They're still kind of shitty, but at the same time, they're kind of sort of freedom fighters, sort of. But even then, it's kind of over in the Middle East. The freedom fighters are kind of assholes too. So, I mean, they're essentially, in a sense, freedom fighters, I mean, a lot of people get upset by that, but in their eyes, they sure are,
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah, it was a great episode. I'm surprised how on the nose they went with it. And the scene for me that really did was the helmet scene, because that's the scene where you're just like, I don't know. Like I said, I kind of brought it back to Sterner. When I was talking about it on social media with some people, and it was kind of like, for me, I'm a father, and I have no higher principle than like kids. I know a lot of people are like, I kind of brought it to principles, and that's a metaphor for principles. And a lot of people were like, those like black and white, like, especially because we're both like kind of the libertarian space-ish and so everybody was like, oh, like, oh, you got to stick to your principles. And it's like, if I'm put in a moral quandary where it's morals or my family, fuck morals. Like, it's just, it is what it is. Like, I have no higher principle than that.
Well,
And
that
it
makes
said a
you
lot.
unprincipled. Okay. I don't care. Okay,
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. And it's
You're
like,
gonna tell you're gonna tell people that I'm unprincipled? Fine. Have at it.
yeah, and it's like, I mean, I feel like I guess I would say I'm a mostly principled person, but I guess that's my highest principle. And if it comes to a situation and when one principle clashes with another, I'm sorry, that's what's happening. And I really dug that, and it really just showed how much he meant to him, to where he clearly obviously held his, being a Mandalorian in high esteem. And for him to do that was like meant a lot. And obviously he's
Yeah.
more impactful when I just looked up, was Mayfeld was the guy's name. It's a really forgettable
Yeah.
name. But then he said later, it kind of really showed what a heart he had, about how he's like, I didn't see anything, and it was just, I don't know. I mean, we'll ignore how retarded it was that he was able to just show his face. Because I assumed when it was a face scan, it was like they were scanning to see if you were someone who had access,
Right.
No,
Yeah. That
we
didn't
just
make
want to
any
look at your
sense.
face. Which I guess you could make the case that they're just recording it in case they go back to look later, but that's a really shitty security system.
What was really cool was when they were escaping and Boba lets out that, what the hell was that? Like an EMP or something like that? It just goes, it just takes everyone out. I'm like, what the hell is that, man?
Yeah, I think, what do they call it? I mean, I think it's some like deep nerd callback that I didn't know. I saw a lot of people nerd out about it online. Yeah, it was like I forget. It's a seismic burst or something weird. I forget. But yeah, it was that was a dope episode. It did a lot. I mean, it was great fight scenes. Like, like the fight scenes on the, like, just the fight scene on the way to that, like the facility on the train was just awesome. Just watching them just beat down with those guys. I mean, it reminded me of like an old school like Chuck Norris movie is what the vibe that one gave me. It was just like, no matter what, you're like, I mean, even though it was a little bit, you kind of had to suspend belief a little bit. It was kind of like, no matter what, the hero's going to win kind of deal, but like in a wholesome, like 70s, 80s action movie kind of way, and not in a bad way. Like, it was almost like it did it on purpose is the vibe I got out of it, So,
No,
yeah.
that episode was amazing. It was top notch. I mean, it may be better in a lot of shows. The penultimate episode is usually the best.
Mhm.
Game of Thrones did that when they were good. The first 4 seasons was always the penultimate episode that was the best. And I think when it comes down to it, that episode was a lot more enjoyable just for action's sake than the season finale.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move into season finale. What me and you have been itching to clearly talk about. I'll let you go. I'm sure you have a lot to say. I have a lot to say.
Well,
I'm
there
sure we'll be
was
on this for a while.
so it starts out where they need to get on the transport so that they can get I can never remember what the doctor's name is. It is Dr. Pershing.
Okay.
So when they see Kara, he notices that she has a teardrop, which means she's from Alderaan, and he starts going at her. And the best one is one of the best lines is I was on the Death Star. What do you say? I was on the Death Star,
Yeah.
or
She said,
yeah,
which one?
and she goes, which one? And
Yeah.
he's like, oh, okay, so we're gonna play now, right?
Yeah.
And then he says, millions of people died. Okay, that's from Clerks. That's from Kevin Smith's Clerks. There's a conversation with Dante and Randall where Randall makes this, and you got to look it up if you've never seen it. You have to look it up on YouTube, where he makes the argument that the first Death Star was obviously it was going to be all evil people on there, so destroying it wasn't bad. But the second Death Star was in the process of being built, so there was all these independent contractors on there and everything, and there would have been, and he says there would have been millions of people on there, so they killed millions of people, and that's never been said in the universe at all. So like they actually brought in like from Clerks and made a conversation in Clerks part of like the canon now,
That's
which is
funny.
pretty wild.
It is ringing a bell now because it's been so long since I've watched Clerks, but it is like,
Yeah.
that is a very niche callback. Yeah, it's
So
funny you picked up on it too.
So the Yeah, and then they just have to, after they get Pershing, they have to figure out how to get on the what is it, a light cruiser?
Yeah, I don't
And
remember. Yeah.
yeah, to get on Gideon's light cruiser, and then they create that scenario where the transport is coming in hot, and Boba's back there shooting at them and everything, and then Boba has to, bail really quick, and you see him jump into. I didn't realize that Boba's was. I had forgotten that his ship could go light speed because that's a small ship. You're frozen.
Lost you there for a second. I may
Yeah,
have
yeah.
to figure out video editing skills finally and get around to doing that. I've been lucky and not had to really do that yet.
You
But
want me to pick up where I was
yeah,
from,
sure.
where I was at?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had forgotten that that Boba's ship could go light speed. So when it jumped to light speed, I was like, oh, that's yeah, I had totally forgotten that. But yeah, and then they managed to get on the light cruiser, and that's when basically all hell breaks loose and everything. And now what do you have to say about?
I wanted to kind of jump back. I meant to jump in earlier, but I was kind of let you
Okay,
call your role. I
got
did really like how they kind of, with the whole the banter between Cara Dune and the Imperial soldiers. I really liked how on the nose, once again, it was how what a metaphor this is for essentially the United States and just the Middle East and all that stuff. Like it was just they couldn't be any more on the nose with it. I don't know if Favreau just really has a bone to pick. I don't know his politics, but it is really cool to see how on the nose that is, and it just makes it more interesting. I don't know. I really dug it a lot.
mhm.
Yeah. That's really all I had to add there because there's not much there aside from they're getting ready. Obviously, it's just kind of the generic build up to like, oh, we're gonna go save them. And then, obviously you got to the point where we're at that scene where they're kind of busting in. And this is just set up all still. I mean, I don't really have anything to add to that. So we'll just go from there because, yeah, I'm just all set up aside from that one part that I thought was cool.
Yeah, so they the the female crew um head to the or obviously going to the bridge.
One
And
second, real quick. I don't mean to cut you off, but I want your thoughts on that because I know a lot of people kind of brought up how that was a girl power moment. I want your thoughts on how if that was cringy for you or if that was weird for you. I want your opinion. Be honest.
I've gotten to the point where I just expect stuff like
Yeah.
this, so it's like I'm just going to enjoy it, and I'm not going to you know not going to let it bother me and everything, and or else I'm not going to be able to enjoy the show. So trying to remember the name of the what are the soldiers, they're now droids.
Dark troopers, I believe they
Dark
are.
troop, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so
CGI, but they're freaky. I'll give them that.
yeah, yeah, it was pretty wild, and
Yeah.
that one gets out, and he has to fight it, and, that was cool, but then you knew that, if any more got out, that he, that it would be hell, and then he airlocks him out, busts the airlock, puts him out into space, and as soon as they did that, I turned to my wife and I said, "They're gonna be back."
Yeah.
It's like this it's not like there's humans in there, they're gonna be back, so
Yeah, which at the same time though, I'm like, are they gonna bust through the door? Like, I don't know, because it did seem like that door was holding them fairly well, but I don't know. So I was like, I went back and watched it again, and I was kind of like in my head, like tactically, I mean, not to overanalyze it, because the first time I watched, I was like, that's dumb, and then later I kind of rewatched, and I still can't make up my mind if that was smart or not, because it is, yeah. I mean, I do. One thing I do want to pick at. I mean, it's kind of being picky, but I thought it was really dumb how they were like, "Oh, we took the human out of it," because they were talking about how this is a third iteration of Dark Troopers, and they were saying that how like we got rid of the human and now it's better. And I actually like with watching its fight with Jin or Dejin or however you say his name, but he it's actually seemed like a flaw because like he was fighting and he was just brute idiotic strength, and there's like if that had been a human in there with like a suit like that, for one, you wouldn't have that like one story thing of like now we have to like wait for them to charge up or whatever. But then also on top of that, they can overcome, obstacles with their mind. Like for example, there instead of just punching him repeatedly head, obviously that suit of armor has joints, break an arm. Like, so,
Right.
like I get that the armor holds up, but it has to have some sort of give to it somewhere. And like a person probably will figure that out. Or you would think in Star Wars they would have droids that could figure that out, But I don't know, whatever. I mean, I guess you overanalyze it. You can drive yourself nuts. But that kind of like took me out a little bit. But whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then once he jettisons the rest of the Dark Troopers, then he finds where Grogu's being held, and of course Gideon's basically holding the dark. Is it called the dark saber?
Yep.
Yeah, over Grogu. So if he does anything to him, it's going to fall, and it's going to, probably cut Grogu in half and everything. So they have a seeming détente, but then they get into a fight, and that fight and the outcome of that fight may be real interesting for next season too.
Okay.
Because Bo-Katan wanted that more than anything.
Which apparently, I guess one thing people point out is she actually is a character who came from, I think, either Clone Wars or Rebels, one of the cartoons. And apparently in the one, at one point, her friend gets the Darksaber and gives it to her. So a lot of people brought that up of like, well, she did it before. So I don't know. I mean, I watched a few videos of people trying to explain why, but it was still like, I mean, at some point you just got to kind of suspend disbelief and go, oh, okay, well, this is what we're working on. But yeah.
And then, once he defeats him and they're all on the bridge, then the Dark Troopers come back, and you knew the Dark Troopers were coming back. So, they lock themselves in the bridge and they just start pounding on the doors. And well, before they have the, when they go in there, then Gideon's trying to cause both of them to fight each other, because he's like, she can't, if she's not wielding it, she can't go back to Mandalore, so she has to defeat you. And he's like, no, I concede. Here you go. And he's like, no, that's not the way this works and everything. So, he devious till the end. And then of course the Dark Troopers come back, and he's like, when they bust through that door, all of you are going to be dead except for me and the boy and the child. And that's when you want to take it from there, because that's when we get a little crazy.
Yeah, I want to back up. I have two things to make a points on. I did like the encounter with Moff and Mando. For one, I thought it was really dumb. He betrayed him, but whatever, because it was kind of like if he had just let him go, that would be it. He would have been able to go, and they'd gone their separate ways. And I actually thought that's where they're going with, because it was kind of the same idea of earlier of how his only concern is Grogu. And I actually thought he was just going to betray all of them and leave with Grogu and leave them all to die. And I actually kind of was like, I kind of like that. Like, I know it's like kind of messed up, but it's kind of like I went to earlier, like, I'm not going to lie, if I'm put in a scenario where it's like, I have to save my child and, some people got to die. I mean, it's kind of fucked up, but it is what it is. I wouldn't blame it at all, because they kind of built up that father-son relationship between them. But yeah, and then God, what was also going to touch on too? Oh, I really like the idea how they brought into the Darksaber, of how that's how the who becomes the head of or becomes the Mandalore, the head of the Mandalorians. I really kind of, once again, I feel like Favreau is just like, maybe I'm just autistic and looking for it, but like I'm like, that's obviously like a metaphor for government in general, like, and how like something like the Constitution, and how that's like, oh well, this piece of paper says I can do it. So it's kind of the same idea with the the Darksaber. It's like whoever has it is the head of Mandalore. I mean, I will give it's probably a better system, but
the lady, it's Monty Python, the Lady of the Lake, throwing scepters around.
Yeah, and I'll let you go into the next part, which is like this is like the orgasm of the episode, essentially.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, obviously, I think everyone knew that the Dark Troopers would be back. So they're all on the bridge, and the door is closed, and they immediately start beating on the door, and that the door is not going to hold. The door to the place where they were stored in may have been built to attempt to hold them. So there is the idea that, it's like, well, if they do go haywire, we need something to be able to hold them. But you knew the door to the bridge wasn't going to hold, and that's when an alarm goes off, and you see an X-wing um, show up, and I love it where it's just like, oh, great, an X-wing, yeah, we're saved, so sarcastically and everything, and then you see that it's a Jedi, and starts walking onto the cruiser, and the one dark trooper after another starts coming after him, coming after the Jedi, and the Jedi is just cutting him down. They're shooting at him, deflecting it with the lightsaber, and just cutting him down until the point where gets every single last one of them, and then um, the dark troopers, even the ones that are banging on the door, turn around to address this threat, and the Jedi kills every one of them, opens the door, walks in, takes the hood down, and that's where I got completely pissed off because I wanted it to be Leia.
You want to be Leia?
I wanted it to be Leia.
Okay, I can see that. I mean, that would have been interesting. I mean,
I think I think it would have just been a better. I think it was just way too obvious that it was going to be Luke.
I can see that. I mean, I guess for me, I honestly had forgotten Luke was even in that era, because when the show started, I remember like thinking like, oh, well, this is at that point and this point. And I was like,
5 years. It's 5 years after the second Death Star.
But I kind of forgot about it, sort of.
Yeah.
It's whatever. They don't really like go on it too much. I just kind of forgot. And then like I remember at one point being like, oh yeah, Luke is out and about this time. But I immediately shut it out of my mind because it was early in the show, and I was like, there's no way. There's absolutely no way they're gonna bring Luke. There's no way they would let them play with the continuity of Luke Skywalker, because it's just a TV show. And like I said, this show just like continually, just like, from Ahsoka to then Boba Fett to Luke, and you're like, what? Like, it's almost like they're kind of letting Jon Favreau kind of like handle the future of it, and they're giving him the reins to do it even in the shows, and I kind of dig it.
I wish he would do the movies.
Yeah.
I mean, that Ryan Singer guy should have been strung up by his short hairs.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people are surmising that maybe they're going to pull some sort of retcon, because I guess in the show there's some I forget what it's called, like it's some Jedi nonsense with time travel and stuff. So I don't know. Maybe if they do it well, it could be cool, because they're going to do an Ahsoka show later, and that's kind of her thing where she got into that in the show. I don't know, they kind of touched on it a little bit. I don't know enough that I've gotten into it. I know a lot of people are hoping. I don't feel like they would do that. I feel like, there are other ways they can go without having to, throw away all the continuity. I'm personally of the mind that I'd like them to go past. But anyways, I digress. Like, it was great watching this Luke scene, because it was a slow realization of what you were seeing, because the X-Wing obviously was the first hint, and you're like, okay, all right. And like, then you see him come out in the hood, and it's very Darth Vader-esque. Like, his entire like movements was just how Darth Vader fought. And so you're like, oh, okay. And you see, and at least this is for me. And then I see the glove, and I'm like, Luke had a glove. I'm like, no way. And then like at the end, like I think I had already realized somewhere along the line it was Luke, but I was just like, no. And then they show the face. I will say the CGI threw me a little bit out of it, but it wasn't that bad. I kind of like was at the same time like, it's a TV show. Like, I can't expect perfect movie quality, so I kind of like immediately let that go. But yeah.
Well, the first line Luke says, his lips don't move.
Yeah.
I noticed that. Yeah. And then after that, they caught up with the CGI and everything. And then, of course, you see, it's Grogu like peeks around from the chair, and Luke sees him and, calls him to him. And Grogu immediately looks at Din. And, I think that was to be expected. It was that he was going to be like, yeah, I'm not leaving you, dude. And then, Luke says, you're going to have to tell him it's okay. He's looking to you for permission. And, then you have the tear jerking part where, where Grogu's leaving Din and everything. And then when R2 shows up, it is so obvious that Grogu knows R2. I mean, he like perks up, looks at him, almost gets a smile on his face. and I think he says something to R2, and then R2 perks up like, "Holy crap! Wait a minute, I do remember you." And yeah, that was cool. But him like hugging Din's leg and everything like that, and then turning around so that Luke could pick him up and then they could leave and everything, and that was nice, and I could tell my wife was getting emotional, and I'm like, next season they're going to be back together at some point, right? I mean, it might not be the first episode, it might not be the second episode, but by the third or the fourth episode, he's going to be, Din and Grogu are going to be back together. It's in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, that scene kind of fucked me a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. I've become a sap as I've gone older. I have 2 daughters, and I've become a sap when it comes to anything with kids. Like I used to. I mean, I'm a pretty stoic guy, but not much really gets me. But like anything like father-child relationships, those get me pretty good. And that one just like, I didn't cry, but I got a little watery, and it kind of fucked me up. I was like, oh my god. And then like obviously the slow realization in my head, like, oh shit, all of Luke's apprentices die. Like, oh god. And I'm obviously, I know now because I thought that they were going to just like leave it like that. I think actually for the purpose of the show, if you're not thinking about the larger universe, they should have just be like, and they're not going to, they've already admitted it, and like Favreau's talked about it, but I think they should have just be like, that's it, Grogu's done, we're not dealing with him anymore, and that's that. And it would have been more impactful because it would still stick with the sacrifice of how he had to give up his child for his safety, and it'd be even more fucked up that he said, I promise to see him again, and what happens. And it's I really almost felt like they should just leave it like a gray area. Like, did they ever meet again? I don't know. But I think for the larger purpose of the universe, Grogu is such a good character that can be used in so many different ways for the future of the Star Wars canon, that it's like, because he's it lives for 900 years ish, so it's like you can do so much with that. Like he could be a reoccurring character in later things that are centuries from now, if you decide to play with the timeline. But I think for the purpose of the show, they should have let him just be like dead, but they've already said they're not going to, not dead, but be like that's it, they're done. He did what he was supposed to, or what he thought he was supposed to, and we know how it worked out. Yeah. But I guess he's got some pretty strong plot armor, because it looks like he's probably going to survive the second purge somehow, one way or another.
Teflon.
Yeah. So and then after that point, it gets into what's after that. Then it's he obviously leaves, and that's the end of the episode. And then we have the post-credit scene, which sounds like you have something you want to say about that.
As soon as that started, I was like, okay, that's Jabba's palace, and that's Jabba's second. So his second took over for him, and which is really weird because the way all that ended in Jedi, you would think that maybe that palace didn't exist anymore or something like that. But yeah. So, and then you see obviously somebody's walking down. You can see shadows, someone walking down the steps shooting people, and then it's revealed that it's Fennec, and I'm like, oh, what the hell is she doing? And I'm like, okay. So here's the thing though, why would Boba be so upset at, I don't know the character's name, and I'm sorry.
No, I don't even
I know people are mad right now. Why would Boba be so upset with him, or was he upset with him and he's just like, I'm just going to take this guy out so that I can sit on this throne?
Yeah, I don't really recall him. For one, obviously, I don't feel like that guy screwed him over in any way. I mean, maybe they'll go into it more. I mean, it's been so long since I've watched the original trilogy that I don't even remember if Jabba even screwed him over in any way. I mean, he fell out.
He just fell.
There's nothing that I can think of that would have him have a grudge with Jabba or him, or like.
And when the hell are we going to find out how he got out of the Sarlacc?
I think there was if I remember correctly, someone told me way back when there was some comic, which obviously none of those comics from back in the day are canon anymore, because they said that with a new trilogy. But yeah, I guess there's some way where he just crawled out, I don't remember how they explained it, but I mean, I don't know. I guess it's just, I mean, that obviously.
How did he lose his armor? That's another thing is like, if he crawled out, what happened? How did the Timothy Oliphant character end up with the armor? Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. I'm sure they'll probably get into the show. I thought when they showed this was their way of saying that this was going to be season 3 of The Mandalorian and they were moving on to a new story. That's what I got out of it first. And I actually was kind of like, okay, that's smart because I thought that was like, because they kind of had a perfect, like these 2 seasons of The Mandalorian were kind of a perfect storyline and a good spot to end him at. And you could also like maybe come back to it later, do like 2 seasons of
Yeah.
Boba and tell some story of his and, kind of bounce around. And they're both Mandalorians. So I assume that's kind of what they would do is be like, season 3, the book of Boba or whatever, but I guess come to find out they're just going crazy with shows now and they're just rolling them out from
So,
this. So.
so the guy who plays Boba, I think it's pronounced his name Timura Morrison. He played Jango Fett in Attack of the Clones.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Yeah, because he was the original. All right, that's kind of what I was getting at. Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah.
So that actor actually played Jenga in episode 2.
Yeah, it was cool seeing him come back. 'Cause for one, he's obviously was all the clones. That's the template they use for the clones. Like, yeah, it was cool seeing
But
him
he
again.
was, yeah, when she goes, when Bo-Katan goes, I've heard that voice before. She doesn't realize he is actually the child of Jenga. He's not a clone.
Yeah, I can't remember. I mean, some nerd will probably correct me later, but I feel like it was vaguely implied. It's been so long since I've watched the original trilogy because it's not the original trilogy, but the prequel trilogy, and I'm pretty sure it's insinuated that he was a clone. Like they did that for him or something, or he requested one of his own or something like along those lines. And so it's insinuating that he was a clone, but he was raised as a son. I mean, I'm talking out my ass. It's been so long since I've watched it.
Was
I
it?
thought that was the case. I don't know.
Yeah, people are going to hear this and be upset. I was under the impression that Jenga, who was cloned,
Mhm.
was that Boba was his actual son.
Yeah.
If I remember, now I have to go back and watch episode 2 because yeah, I'm talking out of my ass. It's been so long since I saw it in the theater, and I don't think I watched it ever again. So
Yeah, I think I've watched it like twice. I mean, I grew up. That was around the time when I was a kid. So I mean, it was like I remember thinking it was cool as a kid, but then when I got older, I was like, I kind of realized the flaws of the prequel trilogy and how,
yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I don't know. We're kind of close in time. And do you want to talk about the future a little bit? Your headcanon of where it goes, or you got somewhere to be? Give you.
I mean, we can a little bit. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do next. I assume all of the tension and the horror that we heard about in 7, 8, and 9, especially 7, well, 8 really, that we're going to start, probably some of that's going to start creeping into the storyline. Yeah, I mean, the way this ended, I have no idea how it'll pick up. I mean, I assume it'll be Mando. Is it going to be him back to bounty hunting? Is it going to be him and Bo-Katan and I can't remember the black girl's name? That they're going to try to take back Mandalore, or I mean, I don't know. I don't really have an idea of what they're going to do.
I mean, my deep headcanon, which I know this isn't going to happen, but there were so many in my head how it would work out really cool. Is I would like for Jin to become the Mandalore, and then just them to accept it and be like, that's the kind of the whole idea of like Game of Thrones with Jon Snow of like the one who doesn't want the throne is the one who should have it. I mean, maybe they can even do the whole Daenerys thing with Bo-Katan, but properly. Maybe not her go full scorched earth, out of nowhere like they did with Daenerys. But because I mean because I feel like, I mean, not to go off on too much of a tangent, I feel like that could have been done well. The Game of Thrones, like Daenerys going crazy, but they
Don't
kind
get
of
me
got
started.
nowhere. Yeah,
Don't get me
it could
started.
have been done, but not to go off on a tangent, it could have been done well, but it wasn't. They just, I don't
That's
know.
one of those. It's one of those situations like this. The reason why this is so good is because you have John Favreau, who's obviously a fan, and then you have what's the other guy's name? Is it Dan Filoni?
Yeah, Dave
Who
Filoni, I
was
think, or
yeah,
Dave.
Dave Filoni, who did Clone Wars, and I mean, the guy's been through it all and knows the whole, you know, knows the movie canon and everything else. So it almost seems to me like they could have got Benioff and Weiss. They could have murdered those guys after season 5 and just allowed some fans to write 6, 7, and 8.
Mm.
Because I mean, I hope Weiss and Benioff are like suffering right now for what they did.
Yeah.
They're just awful.
I'm pretty sure it's ironic. No, okay, I'm gonna back off of Game of Thrones because I could go off on a tangent. But my point being is, I would like to see them do those same beats with Bo-Katan. That'd be cool to see her kind of go off the rails and him, be like she's not fit to lead type deal, and him having to take the reins. And deep headcanon, they just made a character, Grogu, who's gonna have Jedi powers, and he lives for 900 years. I thought it would be really cool if they could use him to set up the future. They could have, Mando take over the throne of Mandalore. At some point, Grogu leave training of Luke before the purge happens, and him take, decide like, because I've always thought, and they kind of touch on these notes a little bit in the show, of how the Jedi and the Sith are just polar opposites. And not that I'm some fan of centrism, but it's a little bit different where you use it's kind of the Jedi and the Sith both suck. Like they're both just it's kind of the whole idea of horseshoe theory that if you come around, you kind of just get shitty on both ends. And it was kind of, I've always liked the idea of the gray Jedi. And I kind of think that would be so cool if they took Grogu and kind of had him take the role of the gray Jedi and eventually, down the road, take the reins from Mando as the Mandalore. And then now you have a society of Mandalorians that he's also raising them to kind of bring balance to the galaxy and to the Force, and kind of like the whole gray Jedi thing. Because I really feel like we need a paradigm shift to get past this whole Skywalker bullshit. And now we can finally be like, prophecy fulfilled. You got Grogu, who was trained by Luke, who was, the son of Anakin. You can make those lines, you can make the story beats connect and be like, prophecy fulfilled. He's brought, balance to the universe. Because there's a big thing in Legends where they actually have to deal with threats from outside the galaxy. And it would be cool to finally get past the Skywalker thing. And I really feel like this would be the way to do Knights of the Old Republic without doing Knights of the Old Republic and stepping on the toes of the continuity. Because you could do it in the future. And I don't know if you know much about Knights of the Old Republic. People have been asking for that for forever. And the aesthetic of the Mandalorians is super similar to, Knights of the Old Republic. And the whole thing people like about Knights of the Old Republic is super powerful Jedi and Sith, which if you had the Great Jedi, they would be able to play off of. They would be able to kind of play off both sides. They'd be super powerful, big giant battles of Jedi and Sith, which I mean, I don't know. I know the Yuuzhan Vong, I think, is the one threat that people always talk about. That's like a big one, but it would just be cool to finally get past the Skywalker thing. And I feel like they could use Grogu as a way to set it up. And I don't think he should be like the head, but, set him up as like a background character, kind of like what Yoda essentially was, in the other ones, where he's kind of that background character that kind of sets the structure and the narrative for the future. And they can kind of, play with that. They can pick their new head characters that kind of play in that world that Grogu they used him to set up, and kind of, I don't know, makes you feel more emotionally attached when they jump, later down the line. Obviously, that's huge headcanon, but my big thing is I just want to move past the Skywalker stuff. And I just really feel like we need to get to a point where it's like, okay, we've got balance. Now what? So, I mean, I know there's a million ways to go, but that's just my biggest thing is I just need to get past that nonsense.
Well, obviously they'll have, Luke is going to drop out. So they, also you have to take into consideration that I think the 7, 8, and 9 are supposed to be 30 years after the destruction of the second Death Star. So you also have to take into consideration anything that they do in this is probably going to have to at least align somewhat with what's going to happen in 25 years. So,
which in my head, Grogu will still be kind of young-ish. So maybe make the point that it's like he escaped that second purge because he's just got magical plot armor. But and he, went back, he left training with Luke, but even then he would still be pretty young. So it'd be one of those things where he kind of got a little bit of training and now he can kind of go back with Mando and, go that way, Yeah. So, and just set the seeds and move on and just maybe end their story. And then just maybe it comes up later. But yeah, that's huge headcanon. Just in my head, I was just like, this is like a great character that they can play with and do so much with, because they created another Yoda that's, you can have because Yoda was a great as a background character. And I was like, this is something you could use Grogu for in future, There's so many different things you could do with him, really. So
yeah, he really needs to learn how to speak English. That's important.
Yeah, they did imply he's a lot smarter than he lets on. So I'm like, why the fuck can this guy not talk yet? But whatever, I don't know. Just not as cute that way. I think it's probably. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
He's only 50 years old, so he's still young, you know.
Yeah. Oh God, I listened to some video. I mean, this will be my last thing I touch on, and we'll wrap up.
Yeah.
One thing that kind of was a horrifying thought is I was listening to one video and they were kind of breaking down. They're talking about how he is so young and you can kind of almost put him in the, I don't know, roughly the head of like a 5-year-old kind of, but he lives for so long and he has all the memories and think about all the stuff that he's gone through in his life. And like, how horrifying would that be to actually be stuck in like a 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old's head for decades essentially, or whatever. And have to go through all this trauma. You know what I mean? Like, how much would that fuck up a person? Like, really, even if you didn't deal with trauma, that would just be, I don't know, it's hard to wrap your head around for like something that lived that long and took that long to mature. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I think it's probably a good spot to stop. You got any, well, before we go into it, this was great having you. I'm really glad you did it. This was fun.
Yeah, man.
You want to drop any plugs?
Free Man Be on the Wall podcast, the Monopoly on Violence, .com. Check out documentary that I made with some friends, and my Substack, pquinones.substack.com, and got some writings on the Mandalorian in there, but I've been concentrating on other stuff lately. So stuff that can be a little bit incendiary, a little too incendiary for other places that I write at.
Yeah. I'm definitely looking forward because I know some things that I think you know. At least I think I know. So I'm kind of interested to see where when you touch on that later. So I'm interested to see where that goes. I definitely highly suggest doing the Substack. It's fun. I mean, we have a lot of disagreements and a lot of things, but at the same time, it's always great seeing your line of thinking, and it's always a pleasure.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
And I'm definitely, like I said, I know some things. I'm looking forward to where that goes. So I highly suggest getting on there because I have a feeling Peter's gonna have a lot to say about some shit here soon. I don't know when the reveal is, but
I've been saying a lot of shit lately too. I mean, I got one dropping tomorrow where it's just like one long continuation of everything I've been writing about. So
yeah, well, I'm definitely looking forward to it. With that, I mean, I'm not going to do my plugs. It'll be in the video description. I'll also put Pete's video in the video description as well. With that, yeah, it's been a pleasure having you. This is awesome. Yeah, maybe we'll have to do it again, find some other thing to do. All right, we'll see you.
I appreciate it.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Bye.